Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I'm a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I'm also the father of two ADHD kids, and I'm married into a whole family of ADHDers. Uh, I must like excitement. Okay, today we're in the second session about parental relationships. First week, we talked about a relationship where neither parent, thank you, and that's my sound engineer saying I'm live and making noise. Anyway, so the first week we talked about parents that where neither parent is ever been diagnosed or, well, I don't know, let's just say they have never been diagnosed with ADHD. And sometimes that's just because we didn't used to do a lot of diagnosing of ADHD back in the day. So may not mean all that much, but I have seen a few of those people. But the next one, the one today, is the combination I see most of the time, which is when one parent has ADHD and the other parent is neurotypical. And you would wonder, at first you'd say, well, why would you? What? But usually, and this is a gross exaggeration, but simplification, I guess, actually. Usually, what you get is that the neurotypical is a little bit compulsive, very detail oriented and that sort of thing. And the ADHDer is a little bit more life of the party kind of person. And basically, what the deal is the arrangement is that the parent who's neurotypical does all the grungy detail work for everybody else in the family, keeps people reminded of when their appointments are and da 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 da. And the ADHD parent usually is, I hate to say entertainment, but kind of that way, is loosens things up. Makes people laugh, makes people sing, that sort of thing. Where which the neurotypical parent will typically wants, uh, and knows that there's something missing in his or her life. They're not as well. They're not as, what do I want to say? Well, but they're not as able to get going, do things impulsively or with a little bit of more enthusiasm and a little less planning, kind of thing. And so that's what the ADHD partner provides for them. And for the ADHDer, it's constant nitpicky details that drive him or her crazy that the other person just seems to have a natural desire to do, almost a can't not do it, and which, helps the family. It's nice to have somebody who pays the bills and that sort of thing. Now, occasionally, I know this is a gross oversimplification, but occasionally you get an ADHDer whose compensation for the ADHD is to become compulsive and very detail oriented, very checklist oriented, very write everything down, check it off when you get it done, kind of thing. Okay, but that's I don't see that as often, honestly. It's more like I think I've I saw both parents, but I saw the wife more often, and she was neurotypical, and she had 4 kids that were all ADHD, and a husband who was ADHD. He used to joke that he was on the 6-year program to get through college, kind of thing. So that happens. Occasionally, it'll be the other way around, where the ADHDer will be one who is more detail oriented and that sort of thing. Usually not real as efficient, but trying like crazy and always messing with a checklist or anyway, like, just always focused on the details. But that's not real common. Okay, the deal you get with a lot of this stuff and the problems you get is that the neurotypical starts feeling picked on, that I just get to do all the grotty work and I just have to pick up after everybody. And I feel like I'm raising an extra child, which all of those have been said to me in a therapy session. And I'm not happy with that. And all he seems to ever be doing is playing around. And the ADHDer, and it's not always a guy, but a lot of times it is. It seems like the ADHDer is sick of being parented, told what to do, reminded to pick up his socks, reminded to, this, that, and the other, and feels overly mothered and smothered, and not a happy boy about that. Oh, I have a collection of articles about how good coffee is for you. So anybody need any of those, let me know. Okay, but so you get an ADHDer, the typical, having troubles with time management, with working memory, planning, organizing, all those sorts of things. A lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, maybe some talents, if he's been raised luckily, that if your parents see, oh, we got to do something special for this kid. We can't just, do the go to school, get good grades, graduate, go to a good school, da 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 da. We got to have a little different pattern. He's got to develop whatever his or her specific abilities and strengths are. Like you think, what's his name? Phillips, the swimmer. His mother got him she was a school principal, and she got him into swimming so he'd have someplace to focus his energy. And obviously he did pretty well, and won all kinds of Olympic gold medals and dip. But before he discovered the world of swimming, he was having a lot of trouble in school, getting into a lot of trouble, not finishing stuff, not doing the things he's supposed to do, all that kind of thing, which is, fairly typical for ADHD. But and the big thing with ADHD, I think, okay, this is my experience, the biggest problem you have with ADHD is they start thinking that they're a screw up, that they can't do anything the way other people do it. And that they, that famous book, you mean I'm not lazy, crazy, or stupid? It's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek title, but it is the truth. These kids, especially back in the day when we didn't have all the research that we have now, proving that there actually is something going on. It is still hard to have a kid grow up with a positive self-image and in having ADHD. And those who do typically have one special parent or the other that has been in charge of finding things for this kid to learn and do and excel in. And that's the big issue with being the parent raising an ADHD kid, is that they're not necessarily going to fit into the family plan, like I was mentioning before, get good grades, get into a good school, make good grades there, get a good job, that formula doesn't work very well anymore. And it certainly doesn't work for ADHDers. Because the system is really not designed for an ADHD kid. It is just not. Um, the I've talked before, but the way we teach math, uh, if it were up to ADHDers to learn math that way, there'd be no math. But if you teach it applied, with problems, here, solve this, figure out how to do that, you know, build a roof on this house, those kinds of things. If you give them problems to solve, they do great. But we don't have a system that's designed that way. We have a system that's sit there, sit still, don't make noise, do your homework, do your in school work, uh, and come back the next day and do it, and with enthusiasm. That's not going to work very well for an ADHD. And in ADHD families, you've got to be a little more flexible than if you just married a neurotypical person. And you're neurotypical, and you'll just have a neurotypical life with neurotypical kids, probably. And there is nothing wrong with that. It's a lot easier, actually, because you fit right into the way the system is designed. But if you have ADHD kids, you can't just do that because they don't always fit in. And back in the day when we were raising kiddos, it was hard. It was very difficult. Half the people, teachers, even half the pediatricians in the town I was in didn't believe that there was any such thing as ADHD. And they were, by God, not going to have their mind changed. And I don't know, they probably all retired now. But back in the day, I mean, I had a pediatrician who I was referring a kid to him for stimulant, evaluation for stimulant medication. He said, "I don't believe in that shit." Whoops. That's what he said. um, he he had a wife who was also a pediatrician, and she worked with ADHD kids. So it was like, how does that survive in a household when you're that far off on things? And this is still a matter of science. It's not a belief system. Okay, ADHD exists. We have all sorts of studies. We have all sorts of physical differences that we can point to. Lower dopamine levels, certain parts of the brain are smaller, certain parts of the brain don't work quite the same way as neurotypical brains. Not brain damaged, but just different. And especially in this country where every one of us is an immigrant, and every one of us, well, I don't know, my parents or my ancestors got to this country somewhere in the 1600s, and I'm pretty sure they weren't because they owned the ship, So well, probably most of the people whose ancestors go back to England or Scotland or French or wherever in Europe were in this country initially because they didn't fit in back there. And here we are. And now, well, I'm sorry, I went way off into some politics. But the deal with the when you have one ADHD parent and you have another who's a neurotypical parent, they have to figure out how to work together, and they have to figure out how to maintain the spark, the thing that attracted them in the first place. And I mean, literally, you have to think about that regularly. What about this person attracted me? What was it like the first time we met? I mean, did everybody else around us just sort of disappear, and we were so engrossed in our conversation and attraction to each other that we didn't even notice? I mean, you've got to remember those things because there were reasons you ended up together, and it's important to hold that thought and to remind yourself of it periodically. We don't think about and hold the thing in memory that were the good things. We hold the things in memory that are the bad things, the things we got to watch out for, the things, Same with relationships. There are reasons you were attracted to this person. Were you attracted to him because I mean, his ADHD made him fun, the life of the party, uh, had enthusiasm, love of life, all that kind of stuff? And for you, were you attracted to her because she was so calm and laid back and all this? It of course it depends. Uh, could be the opposite person was the ADHD or and so on, but it's the same idea. Something attracted you to each other, and you've got to remember that. You've got to hold on to it because it's gonna be something you'll forget about as the years go by, and all you'll remember is that sucker won't put his socks in the laundry basket, or I don't know. That's sort of mild, I guess, but you have to learn to focus on the good things that are going on, and uh, the the deal you're going to have to figure out is like, okay, in all relationships, some of you will be better at some things and than others. Some of you will be better at handling an ADHD kid who's angry and stomping around and yelling and screaming and jumping up and down. Some of you will make that whole situation blow up. So you probably ought to just, oh, wait a minute. Here, she does better with that than I do, or he does better with that than I do. I think I'll just back off and let him take care of it. But you have to talk about these things, and you have to agree that I'm better at handling this kind of stuff and I'm like schoolwork. You know, if you're really good at mathematics and just love it, you're the one to work with the math homework. If you hate math, you hate numbers, took you 3 years to pass, basic arithmetic, you probably don't want to be the one in charge of doing the math homework. I mean, you've got to make logical, the same kind of thinking and rational, logical stuff that you use when you're talking at work is the same kind of stuff you need to do at home. I have these skills. You have those skills. Let's figure out how to make it work together. That's what you've got to do. And of course, anytime you're talking about ADHD, like it's a single thing, you've got to understand that there's a whole range of things that are ADHD, a whole range of behaviors, a whole range of abilities, a whole range of difficulties. And not everybody is the same. If you think of ADHDers as being people who have troubles with all kinds of little details and stuff and probably should never consider being an accountant, there are a lot of ADHDers who love accounting. It's kind of fun for them. It's kind of like a game they play. And that's one of those things that you can't just have somebody like me just say, well, you've got to do it this way and this way and this way. No, you can't. You got to look at what you got, evaluate it, and figure out what the best solution is. You got to think about it. You've got to problem solve like you do anything else in life. But this one's a little more important because this one's your kid. But the other thing about that is that you probably have, I'm going to call them prejudices, but what I mean by that is you have some preformed opinions about what this child should do and what he should become and that sort of thing. And it's important to make that clear in your head that, oh, this is what I would really like him to do or her to do. But they don't seem to be heading in that direction. They seem to be wanting to do something else. And that's particularly important when, if there's a family history, if everybody in the family is a lawyer or everybody in the family is a doctor or everybody in the family is a musician, but whatever, then anybody who deviates from that is going to be a special problem that you, as the parent, are going to need to solve, and you're going to need to solve it with both of your heads working together and appreciating each other and each other's abilities and unique ways of looking at the world. Okay, we are done for today. I am Dr. Terry James Gingrass. This is still Dr. G's ADHD Chat. Let's make the world safe for ADHDers. My website is terrygingrassphd.com. You can sign up for a free coaching evaluation. You can also just use that as like a little bulletin board. But you can also you can email me through this site, whatever site you're listening to this on, and I try to keep up with those. Although I'm not all that techie, and I still have the Smith Corona I took to college. Okay, so it's if you know, for those of you who don't know what it is, a portable typewriter. Clickety clickety. Okay. Anyway, so I will catch you in a few weeks. Oh no, I'll catch you next week. Come to think of it. Okay, we will see you later.